Welcome to World Gone Weird. Buckle up, buttercups, because today's news is like a clown car full of existential dread.
Right, so clown car seems appropriate. Let's start with the Duterte arrest. The ICC warrant finally served. What are we actually seeing here? Is this justice or just international political maneuvering?
I think it's a long time coming, considering the sheer number of alleged extrajudicial killings, especially targeting poor communities during his drug war. Somebody needs to be held accountable.
Hold on a minute. Accountability? Says who? The ICC? I mean, the Philippines withdrew from the Rome Statute. Isn't that like a get-out-of-jail-free card? Sovereignty? Anyone?
The legal precedent is actually interesting there, Jimmy. The ICC retains jurisdiction over crimes committed during a state's membership, even after withdrawal. It's a bit like racking up credit card debt, closing the account, but still owing the money.
So it's like a bad breakup. You can leave, but you can't take your crimes with you. Got it. But seriously, is this actually going to change anything on the ground, or is it just going to further destabilize things in the Philippines?
Well, hopefully it sends a message, right? That there are consequences for actions like that. And maybe it emboldens victims and families to seek justice within the Philippine system too.
A message to whom exactly? Strong men don't exactly take notes from international courts, Otto. And you think this isn't going to rile up his supporters? We're talking about a guy who still wields a lot of influence.
Indeed. The news reports are already showing supporters protesting, claiming his rights were violated. It highlights the inherent conflict between international law and national sentiment. And what about Marcos Jr.? He has to walk a very fine line now.
Marcos Jr. is probably having a margarita on a beach somewhere, glad he doesn't have to deal with this directly. Okay, so Duterte's in custody. What's next? A televised trial? A plea bargain? A dramatic escape involving a small plane and a mariachi band?
I'm hoping for a fair trial, obviously. A chance for the victims' stories to be heard, for evidence to be presented. It's about the principle of justice, regardless of political fallout.
Wishful thinking. This is going to be a circus. A political show trial that's going to further divide the country and probably accomplish nothing in the long run. The ICC has a history of being selective in its prosecutions, let's say.
The selectivity is a valid point, Jimmy. It does raise questions about which leaders are held accountable and which are not. The ICC's jurisdiction and perceived fairness are perpetually under scrutiny, especially from those outside its direct reach.
So basically, it's complicated, shocking. Okay, enough about international court drama. Let's talk about something equally depressing. Trump's grand plan for gestures vaguely everything.
The week ahead seems packed. Continuing resolution to avoid a government shutdown, tariffs taking effect, a report on his assassination attempts, and the shipbuilding program. It's a whirlwind.
The shutdown worries me the most. The idea of cutting funding for healthcare and veteran benefits, that's just unconscionable. It's like holding the country hostage for political gain.
Oh, come on. It's just political posturing. They do this every year. Besides, Trump's saying this sets them up to cut taxes and spending. Maybe it's what the country needs. Some fiscal responsibility.
What's the underlying scientific basis for the assertion that reducing government spending will automatically boost the economy? Jimmy? Are there quantifiable economic models that demonstrate this correlation? And what are their limitations? It's a complex issue with many variables, and simple pronouncements often lack empirical support.
Fiscal responsibility from that guy, please. It's like asking a pyromaniac to handle the fireworks at a birthday party. But I'm curious about these tariffs. He's hitting steel and aluminum again, right? Is this just another round of economic roulette?
The tariffs could have serious consequences. Raising costs for consumers, disrupting supply chains, it's a ripple effect. And it could trigger retaliatory tariffs from other countries, escalating the trade war.
Well, maybe it'll bring back jobs to the U.S. Force companies to reshore. You gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet, Otto. Sometimes you have to play hardball in these international negotiations.
The reported use of chains and restraints in deportations, despite statements about human rights from the U.S. government, raises significant concerns about the application of justice and the ethical treatment of individuals. A purely objective analysis of the images needs to account for the potential for bias and misinterpretations. And is this hardball really worth the human cost? I mean, does the end actually justify the means in this case?
Hardball? It's more like whack-a-mole with the global economy. And this shipbuilding program, is he trying to build a real-life version of Battleship? Because I'm pretty sure we lost that game against the aliens in the movie.
I suppose the shipbuilding program could create jobs, stimulate the economy, but at what cost? What's the environmental impact? What are the strategic implications? It's never that simple.
It's about projecting strength, Otto. Deterrence. You think anyone's going to mess with us if we have the biggest, baddest navy in the world? It's classic power politics?
Power politics often overlooks the potential for unintended consequences, doesn't it? The escalating trade war, while seemingly driven by political posturing, highlights the complex interplay of economic anxieties and global power struggles. It's disheartening to see potential for conflict, but it also sparks a deeper need to understand how these underlying tensions might be better managed through diplomatic means and international cooperation.
So, more battleships, more tariffs, more Trump. Great. I need another margarita. What else is on the dumpster fire agenda today?
There's the potential for a new Iran nuclear deal. Trump's apparently sending signals he wants to negotiate, but Khamenei's rejecting it.
An Iran deal could be huge. It could de-escalate tensions in the Middle East, prevent a nuclear arms race. It's a chance for diplomacy.
Please, another Iran deal? That's just kicking the can down the road. They'll cheat, they'll lie, they'll keep enriching uranium. It's a waste of time. Maximum pressure is the only thing they understand.
The sheer volume of nuclear material accumulated by Iran, as measured by the IAEA, seems to suggest a purposeful strategy to enhance bargaining power. This raises questions about whether such accumulation is purely motivated by civilian energy or serves a secondary, potentially aggressive, purpose. The correlation between material accumulation and the rejection of non-nuclear deals needs further investigation. The Deal 1.0 situation reeks of potential political theater. Is it genuinely an attempt at diplomacy or just a way to score points?
So, it's chess with nuclear warheads. Fantastic. Is there any good news, like any at all? Did someone finally invent a pizza that makes you lose weight?
Well, if a deal with Iran is possible, that could de-escalate one hotspot. And maybe, just maybe, these spending bills, even if they're not perfect, can keep the government functioning and avoid a complete economic meltdown.
Don't hold your breath. And even if we avoid a shutdown, we're just racking up more debt, kicking the can further down the road for future generations to deal with.
It really all seems connected. Political instability, economic anxieties, potential for armed conflict. It's a complex web. The differing responses to economic policies from China and other countries compared to the US suggests that different societies operate with distinct and complex political and economic systems that require more nuance than a simple winner-takes-all analysis.
A complex web of doom sounds about right. So, to recap, Duterte's arrested, Trump's in charge, the world's on fire. Tune in next week when we discuss, probably the apocalypse.
Actually, I am interested in a tangent on a related point. Let's talk about global celebrity philanthropy, because I see these news stories and I wonder about the unintended consequences of these extreme acts of generosity.
I see where you're going. Celebrities raise a ton of money, that's great, right? More resources flowing to important causes.
Yeah, but does it actually help? Or does it just make celebrities feel good about themselves while creating more problems than they solve?
It's like that time I volunteered to cook Thanksgiving dinner and ended up setting off the smoke alarm and ordering pizza. Good intentions, disastrous results.
Precisely. We see these fundraising campaigns, often fueled by social media, pouring money into local communities. But are we examining how that influx of cash is really impacting those communities long term?
What do you mean exactly? I'd think that money for schools, hospitals, disaster relief, that's all positive, right?
Maybe. Or maybe it creates dependency. If a community gets used to handouts from celebrities, what happens when the celebrity moves on to the next cause? Do they ever learn to stand on their own 2 feet?
It's like raising a trust fund baby, spoiled, entitled, and completely incapable of functioning in the real world. But with, slightly less yachting.
And what about the local economy? If a celebrity builds a fancy new hospital, does that undermine existing local healthcare providers? Do they get driven out of business because they can't compete with the free, celebrity-funded services?
That's a valid point. I hadn't thought about that. It could create a two-tiered system where only the celebrity-approved organizations thrive and everything else withers.
Exactly. It's like Walmart coming to town. They drive out all the small businesses and then everyone's stuck working for minimum wage. Except in this case, it's a celebrity charity instead of Walmart.
And what about the perverse incentives? If a community knows that a celebrity is likely to swoop in and fix things after a disaster, does that discourage them from taking preventative measures themselves?
That's a critical consideration. Are these initiatives actually incentivizing a lack of preparedness? Are we fostering a cycle of dependency, where communities become reliant on external saviors rather than building their own resilience?
So, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Celebrity edition? That's a pretty cynical view, isn't it?
Realistic. Cynical and realistic. These celebrities mean well, probably, but they don't understand the complexities of these situations. They just throw money at the problem and expect it to go away.
It's the celebrity equivalent of mansplaining. Here, let me fix that for you, you poor, helpless locals.
There's a real lack of nuance here. It's not about demonizing celebrity philanthropy, but rather about demanding a more critical examination of its actual impact. We need to ask tougher questions about sustainability, empowerment, and long-term consequences.
So what's the alternative? Should celebrities just not get involved at all? Is it better to do nothing than to risk causing unintended harm?
Maybe. Or maybe they should just write a check and stay out of it. Let the actual experts on the ground handle things. Local organizations, community leaders, people who actually understand the nuances of the situation.
Or maybe they should just stick to acting. I mean, most of them are terrible at that anyway.
Ideally, these initiatives should prioritize community ownership and empowerment. Instead of simply parachuting in and imposing solutions, celebrities should be partnering with local organizations, listening to community needs, and supporting initiatives that build long-term resilience.
That makes sense. It's about empowering people to help themselves, not just giving them a temporary fix.
Easier said than done. A lot of these celebrities want the photo op, the good PR. They're not really interested in the hard work of building sustainable solutions.
It's all about the gram, baby. Look at me saving the world, #blessed.
The social media aspect is huge. It amplifies the performative aspect of charity. It's less about genuine impact and more about projecting an image of altruism. But maybe that image does some good?
Yeah, the social media buzz can raise awareness, inspire others to donate. It's not all bad.
But it also creates this pressure to constantly do good in a very visible way. It can lead to these short-sighted, unsustainable projects that do more harm than good.
It's like a virtue signaling arms race. I donated more than you. My charity is better than yours.
And what about the role of government in all of this? Should we be relying on celebrities to fill the gaps in social services? Or should we be demanding more from our elected officials?
Definitely more from our elected officials. Charity is great, but it shouldn't be a substitute for systemic solutions. We need policies that address the root causes of poverty, inequality, and disaster vulnerability.
Good luck with that. Politicians are too busy lining their own pockets to worry about systemic solutions.
It's a system designed to fail. But hey, at least we have celebrities to distract us from the impending collapse of civilization. Thanks, Hollywood.
Ultimately, it's about demanding more thoughtful and responsible philanthropy. It's about holding celebrities accountable for the impact of their initiatives. And it's about recognizing that real change requires more than just money. It requires long-term commitment, community ownership, and systemic solutions.
So, less savior complex, more community partnership.
Exactly. Less flash, more substance.
And less setting the smoke alarm off while trying to cook Thanksgiving dinner. I'm still scarred.
Okay, that paints a pretty clear picture of celebrity pitfalls, but is there any potential positive application that can be developed further?
I'd argue that the best approach is when celebrity influence is used to amplify local voices, not replace them. Think of a celebrity using their platform to highlight the work of grassroots organizations, to raise awareness about specific issues, or to advocate for policy changes.
Yeah, like if they use their platforms to call out corrupt politicians or demand more transparency from corporations. But that's too risky for most of them. They don't want to alienate their fan base.
Exactly. Staying on brand is more important than saving the world. Unless saving the world is their brand, of course.
It's a risk-reward calculation, isn't it? Is the potential for negative publicity worth the potential for positive impact? It highlights the tension between celebrity image and genuine activism.
And it's not just about the money. Celebrities can bring attention, media coverage, and political pressure to bear on issues that might otherwise be ignored. That can be incredibly valuable.
Sure, but attention fades. Media cycles are short. What happens when the cameras go away? Does anyone actually remember the issue a week later?
They're already on to the next cause, the next photo op, the next way to stay relevant. It's the circle of celebrity charity.
So, it comes back to sustainability. How do we ensure that these initiatives have a lasting impact beyond the initial burst of attention and funding? How do we build systems that can function even when the celebrity has moved on?
That's where the local partnerships are key. Building the capacity of local organizations, training local leaders, creating sustainable infrastructure. That's the real work.
And holding those local organizations accountable, making sure the money is actually being used effectively and not being siphoned off by corrupt officials.
Oh, you mean assuming that everyone involved is inherently trustworthy? Rookie mistake, Jimmy.
Transparency and accountability are paramount. Clear metrics, regular reporting, independent audits. These are essential to ensuring that the money is actually reaching the people it's intended to help.
And it's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What works in one community might not work in another. You need to listen to the local needs and adapt your approach accordingly.
Which means actually spending time in the community, talking to the people, understanding the challenges, not just flying in for a photo op and then jetting off to your next movie set.
So basically, celebrities need to do their homework. Shocking concept, I know.
Due diligence is key to mitigating the possibility of doing harm, and that is the bare minimum.
So, maybe it's not about celebrity philanthropy being inherently bad, but about doing it right. Being thoughtful, responsible, and community-focused.
I'll believe it when I see it. Until then, I'm going to remain skeptical.
Skepticism, the only sane response to the modern world. And with that, we're out of time. Tune in next week for more doom and gloom, served with a side of snark.
Don't forget to question everything, folks.